Bright Tuty. Every student matters.
Pip described his peers, that is, the other students he was studying with, that is, Bentley, Drummle, and Starlup. Bentley Drummle was stupid. He was just proud, reserved, and always suspicious. And Startup on the other hand was spoiled, and he was made and brought up by a very overprotective mother. And Pip preferred his company to Drummle, so he was always happy to be around Startup than Drummle. His best friend was obviously Herbert. A few weeks later, Pip arranged to take Wemmick on a dinner invitation he accepted Wemmick's invitation to his place. They met at Mr. Jagger's office, and Wemmick described some of Mr. Jagger's personal habits to Pip. Mr. Jaggers never locked his doors or windows at night, and he always carried a very expensive gold watch. Yet Mr. Jaggers was so infamous among the thieves that nobody wanted to rob him ever. Pip and Wemmick, they walked through Walworth, and it was a very strange looking tiny town, gothic, very scary kind of a cottage which had a gun, which had a livestock. Wemmick was proud of that building and everything inside that. He introduced Pip to his almost near-deaf father, who was very aged, to whom Wemmick was devoted with a lot of love and affection. Wemmick's manner, the way he lived at Wallmouth, was very warm and was very kind and friendly. He explained to Pip that he kept his office life and personal life separate, and that Mr. Jaggers has never heard of Wallmouth ever. When he walked Pip back to Little Britain from Walworth the next morning, Pip noticed that Wemmick's facial expressions, they became very stiff. They altogether changed as they came near to the office. That morning, Mr. Jaggers invited Pip along with Drummle and Startup and Herbert to dinner the next day. Mr. Jaggers' house was dark and it looked very serious. Throughout the visit, Mr. Jaggers was most interested in Drummle, who was an heir of a baronet. So he advised Pip to steer or to be away from Drummle. During the dinner, which was set up very lavishly for them, Pip noticed that Mr. Jaggers, he was trying to bring out the weakest areas of these boys in the conversation and was trying to inspire the boys to laugh around and to have fun and also to think about going and having and spending money. Pip noted that Drummle left Mr. Pocket for good, a month after this dinner. So he did not return back after that. Mr. Jaggers' only servant was his housekeeper, who was Molly, whom Wemmick had urged Pip to take note of. She was very quiet. She was a witch like a woman who had long hair. She was very submissive, was very polite and obedient to Mr. Jaggers. Pip imagined her to be that kind of a lady who would always say yes to her master. The adult Pip narrator also told us later in the part of the story where he had a vision that he had the illusion, he saw the kind of face that this lady will have after years to come. Now, when the boys were having fun about who was the strongest, Mr. Jagger forces the boys to show their wrists to each other, which are scarred and disfigured, and Mr. Jagger claims the strongest that he's ever seen. So when he saw the wrists of the boys and the wrist that he found to be the scarred and which was not proper and clean and neat and tidy, he considered that to be the strongest, and that was obviously Pip's. Pip received a letter from Biddy informing him that Joe was coming to London the next day with Mr. Wopsle and he planned to visit him. She reminded Pip of how good Joe was to him. Pip was very disappointed with the news and he thought how he could keep Joe away from himself. He was basically ashamed of Joe's uneducated manner and he did not want anybody to see him. He especially wanted Drummle not to come across him. Joe will come to Bernard's Inn apartment, which Pip had recently decorated in a beautiful manner and had spent a lot of money on that. Pip also hired a servant boy who was dressed in fancy waistcoat and boots but did not do much at his house. When Joe arrived, Pip was very well aware of the manners that he still carried with himself. The kind of clothes that he saw he was wearing, he did not like them and he was very uncomfortable. Joe called Pip Osir even though Pip did not like that. He told Pip that Mr. Wopsle had left the village for London so that he could look forward to becoming an actor, and he handed Pip the bill for Mr. Wopsle's first play. When Herbert left for work, Joe told Pip that he had come to convey a message from Miss Havisham. Miss Havisham told him that Estella was home and that she would like to see Pip. Joe told him that Biddy had encouraged him to tell Joe whatever was it in person, and then in a very nice and a good manner he said sorry, and he said that I know you are ashamed of me. I know the different classes that we share now and you are apologetic of meeting me in public. He says that his place at the forge was there, that he knew. Joe agreed that he belonged to the forge, that was his place. He blessed Pip and he left. Pip was very impressed by Joe's dignity, and he ran after him to stop him, to express his feelings, but Joe by then had disappeared. Next day, he arranged to return back to the village, but he made an excuse to himself that he would be staying at Blue Boar instead of going to the forge. Now that Pip was an adult, and when he was narrating the entire story to us, he called himself a swindler. He called himself a cheat. For being ashamed of the place you belonged to, he did not like that. Now, on the coach, when he was going back to his town, Pip was there with two convicts. One of these convicts Pip recognized as the man he met the other day at the Three Jolly Bargemen. Pip was very grateful that that man did not recognize him back, and during the entire journey, Pip overheard the man recounting and telling about how there was a convict who had asked him to find the boy that had fed him and had kept him in a secret and had asked him to give £1 notes. Now, at the Blue Boar, Pip read an article which was written by Mr. Pumblechook in a local newspaper saying that Pip was his mentor, his friend, and his caretaker. So the people have totally changed around him now.